what time it was, my brother gave me a call. He said they can't find Chloe.
I was just asking her to call the police because someone, I think, has taken my child.
You said that they found a dead body.
Do you know her name?
No. Well, you said that her name was Chloe.
Chloe Hoson. Did you know that?
No.
We just can't understand why somebody would want to do this to Chloe, because she was just the perfect little girl.
Chloe Hoson is one of those stories you never forget.
Her life was cut so short, at just 5 years old, that she had such potential and she was going to do wonderful things in her life, no doubt. And she didn't get the opportunity to do that.
It was a horrible waste. That image haunts me every day, every single day.
He said the man with the yellow hair took her. I said to him, what man with the yellow hair?
I can't control myself when my voices bug me. I get violent, I get aggro, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Where does Chloe Hoson as a case fit in terms of all the cases that you've done?
It's one of those ones that has stayed with me, and that's got nothing to do with the twists and turns of the investigation. It's got everything to do with the family and the victim and what happened to Chloe.
It's so bittersweet looking at photos, because one minute I could look at a photo and have a lot of joy from it, but that's quite rare.
Are you feeling joy right now when you look at that? Or?
No. I just look at it now and miss her a lot.
The death of her daughter is something that Karina rarely talks about. This is her first and only interview.
You're angry at the moment, aren't you?
Oh, very.
Why are you angry?
Because the person that took away my child is allowed out on the street.
Yeah, she's been in jail for 15 years. Doesn't matter where he's been. Yeah. She's done more time than what he has.
I'm still tormented at what he did.
Chloe Hoson was just 5 years old when her life was taken. Her uncle, Peter Chalker, remembers every moment of that traumatic time when his niece's life was cut short.
She was a baby. Yeah. Chloe was a baby. Chloe was everything to Karina. To lose a child, especially in that way, I don't know how somebody'd cope. I know that it really hit Karina hard.
A gregarious, confident little girl, and loved by not only her parents but all those other members of the family that came in contact with her. And I've heard that story over and over again from different members of the family, just how loved she was.
Roger Best was the homicide detective in charge of the investigation. This case, one of the ones he'll never forget.
Really, when I think about it, it's that tragic loss of life and being robbed of a life, and it's tragedy.
Chloe's family moved into a southwest Sydney caravan park in mid-2003 with their 4 children. Karina was heavily pregnant with their 5th, and big sister Chloe loved to help out around the house.
She was definitely like a little mum to them.
She loved playing with cats.
Yeah, definitely loved cats. She got that from me. She loved any animal really, but cats were her favourite.
Residents say she loved kittens, this one named after her.
She loved the little cat. She'd pick them up and give them to us to look after.
Yeah, there was always stray cats around. She always wanted to bring them home.
There was lots of funny stories. She used to chase the cats around when we were outside the caravan. She'd try to climb trees and just do all the adventurous stuff. Like a typical 5-year-old, she'd find all that stuff really interesting.
Hope Williams was a bit older than Chloe, but they were best friends.
She was very inquisitive, always asking questions, always looked up to me because I was the older one. Followed me around like I was like a mother duck.
She used to be my best friend and all, and I know she's really hoping that I'm not really sick, but yeah, I do feel like it. But she was really nice.
It's hard to say this now, but talking to strangers back then, it didn't really seem like much. But now looking back at it, it's a little bit scary because she'd say hello to everyone. She's very talkative, very friendly. And yeah, that hurts a little bit to say now.
One of those children that would simply go off and play with anybody that she found. And that's the way it should be.
But it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
The caravan park was nothing flash, anything but the ideal place to bring up a family.
I mean, that was a hellhole of a place. Pretty much the whole joint was filled with sex offenders, prostitutes, drug addicts, drug dealers, criminals. Why Department of Housing would put a family up in a place like that, it's beyond me.
Was it a safe environment? Well, all I can say is that after looking for a short time at the list of people in that caravan park, we had quite a list of potential suspects for Chloe's murder based on their previous history and previous behaviour. So perhaps it wasn't.
Friday, November 7th, 2003 started off like any other day. There was nothing to warn Karina that today would be the last time she would ever see her daughter Chloe alive.
Do you remember the last thing that Chloe said to you?
She came inside and was tugging at my shirt, and I was tidying up at the time, and I told her just to leave me alone, to go back outside and play. Yeah, and that was the last time I seen her.
Do you know what she wanted to say?
No.
This is the last image of Chloe alive that morning with her siblings and another resident at the mailboxes at the driveway entrance to the park.
I went back inside and I asked Tyson, her brother, has he seen Chloe? And he said the man with the yellow hair took her. I said to him, what man with yellow hair? And because Tyson had a bit of a speech problem at the time, so I couldn't completely understand everything he was saying. And he just kept saying the man with the yellow hair.
Little Chloe didn't go to school yesterday. The eldest of 4 children, she was playing at the caravan park, her home for only a few months. When she didn't return, her mother alerted police.
Police knock on every caravan door, searching far and wide. Desperate to find her firstborn, Karina steps in front of a camera, but the stress is so great she struggles to muster a sentence.
Just if anyone... It's shocking. Like, we were out looking all afternoon. We went down the river.
And there was crowds and crowds of people. There was police, there was 7 News. Everyone was hysterical, crying.
The helicopter. I just kept hearing the helicopter. And when I heard the helicopter, I knew nothing was going to turn out good. I sat out on my front veranda and just sat there watching everyone that went past, thinking that everyone in my mind was guilty somehow. Maybe that person took my child, maybe that person did, or maybe that person.
You just sat out there all night?
Yeah. I couldn't sleep.
Karina Karina wasn't the only one who stayed awake that night. Just out of her sight, but in view of security cameras, one resident runs a sinister late-night errand. It's just before 1 a.m. and the grounds of the caravan park are deserted.
Well, where he's actually walking, yeah, no, we haven't seen that. I don't even think that was played in court.
Oh, well. He waited until 1 a.m. before walking out with her body in a bag and dumping her in the creekland.
So you put her in that? You're fucking kidding me.
Then 15 minutes later, he comes back. His bag is empty.
It's like he's coming back from a football game. She can't be in there, man. She can't be in there. Can't be in there. Fuck, I'd like to put him in that fucking bag. Oh, God. Oh.
At dawn the next day, no one has yet seen that security vision because at this stage there's still real hope of finding Chloe alive. So police issue releases to newsrooms around Sydney to alert everyone to the search for a missing child. It's just after 8 a.m. on Saturday. Homicide detectives are on standby and an army of volunteers is ready to search for the missing 5-year-old. Also joining their ranks, another of Chloe's uncles, DUANE, has made his way from across town. He's at the nearby train station, making the walk up the road 10 minutes or so to the nearby caravan park. But it's when he reaches this point, right about here, that he's stopped in his tracks. What happens next is inexplicable, extraordinary, and chilling.
I can't explain it, but it was like something telling me that she was there or around that area. So I said out loud, okay darling, show me where you are. And something told me, walk along the creek edge. So I walked around like the bank of the creek, and that's when I found her.
Up until, hours before, nobody could find her. She wasn't there the night before. All of a sudden, this bloke's come running over, screaming out to him, saying, I found her, I found her.
Over the creek. Whereabouts? And there was it's all right.
How? How's that possible? They had everybody out searching the night before, up until 11 o'clock at night. They had thermal imaging police helicopter. How didn't it pick, how couldn't they pick up her body? How did he manage to just find her?
There was a strong feeling that, that I knew she was there. I knew she was there. And I can't explain it. I cannot explain it.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we're going to go hand out flyers, missing flyers. Just as we're about to jump in the car, I noticed a whole lot of policemen walking back towards the Caravan Parkway, and the people that were searching for Chloe were all walking back. They were pretty sure that they had found Chloe. And she wasn't alive anymore. that's when everything changed.
Everything changed when the uncle of Chloe, DUANE KANE, came running up to police at the briefing location, exclaiming that he'd found her and found her body.
Over the creek. Whereabouts? On the other side. It's all right.
What did you see?
Oh, she was, there, bags over her head. Her pants were pulled down. She was tied up. And just the amount of blood. I wanted to run down and pick her up. I did. But yeah, something else told me, like, don't do it. Like, you know, don't do it.
Don't touch her.
Yeah, don't touch her. Just.
You knew it was too late.
Yeah. Oh, I knew that. Yeah, you could tell that she was gone. So,
and you knew it was her, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So someone from the general public coming across a body that had been dumped is certainly a common way in which we come across victims of homicide. But those that then speak with him and find out that he's the uncle of Chloe, that he just travels over that morning to help for the search and randomly decides to walk down that path, a path that he doesn't normally take, and check that creek land. In the minds of the police, no doubt police that were there the night before searching, going, well, I've searched that area and she wasn't there. So the alarm bells were certainly well and truly ringing in relation to DUANE KANE.
Got him to show where she was, and he's taken him over there, and automatically the police have detained him.
Despite being found on the banks of Prospect Creek, police don't believe Chloe had been in the water, but they do believe she was abducted and murdered. A man believed to be a relative made the discovery. He's still being questioned.
Well, the warning bells went off for everyone when an uncle finds the little girl in an area where the police had already searched. Very quickly, the warning bells went off.
Okay, if you're ready, sir. Everybody rolling? Yep. Okay, take it away.
Okay, police are appealing for assistance with the discovery of the body of a 5-year-old child on the banks of the Prospect Creek shortly before 8:30 this morning. The body was discovered by a man walking through the car park along the banks of the Prospect Creek, and he's currently assisting us in relation to making a statement over.
He was the #1 suspect.
Police aren't letting DUANE out of their sights as they lock down the area. A missing person search is now a full-scale homicide investigation. Officers seal off the area to contain the crime scene. The young girl's body lies just metres down the bank.
So I saw Chloe, I saw where she was, I saw how she was positioned, I saw what had been done to her, I saw how she'd been tied up, and I saw how plastic bags had been placed over her head.
The park is in lockdown. Crime scene photographers and forensic officers stay there all day, going over every inch of ground.
They are looking at everything in that area, and it's a big area. They're looking at absolutely everything. Every cigarette butt, every piece of rubbish, anything that was there. Our murderer has been to that scene, we know that. Chloe's body's dumped there, we know our murderer has been there. He's left something. It's preservation. Let's make sure that we stop anybody coming in there and damaging any evidence that exists.
Officers take DUANE to Cabramatta Police Station to be interviewed. He willingly answers every question and gives whatever police ask.
This morning when I was just walking through, it was just like something telling me, go check the creek bed before you go, to go check around the park sort of thing and have a look.
Did you search anywhere else before you got there?
No, just kind of look through the park.
You've heard stories how, you know, they've got confessions and made people talk, and here I am, like, you know, the main suspect of, you know, murdering Chloe, and got this detective leaning across the table right in my face, just telling me, just tell us what happened, just tell us the truth. What'd you do it for?
My mind went straight to the interview with DUANE KANE and how it was that I was going to obtain a confession or admissions from him in relation to his involvement in the murder of Chloe Hoson, because DUANE's story was one full of coincidence.
Not only does DUANE KANE find his niece's body just up there and in a spot that's already been searched by police exhaustively and only the night before, he then offers up to detectives an alibi, which is at best unconvincing.
What were you doing in that time?
Nothing. Just sitting at home watching TV.
So where were you watching television?
In my mum's bedroom, sitting on her bed watching the TV.
Well, you know what you were watching?
Just anything really. Don't really remember now, mate. You know.
I understand.
As he continues talking with detectives, DUANE offers up a potential motive, quite by accident. He also admits to having a photo of Chloe in his wallet, and he describes his relationship with the 5-year-old as very close.
She adored me, I adored her.
And when was the last time you saw Chloe?
A few weeks ago, when I had the argument with Karina and she kicked me out and told me never to come back.
Did you have any idea the police were thinking you've done it?
No. It wasn't until on the way back to the police station when the detective said to me that the percentage of a family member or somebody close to the family that committed the crime. And I actually thought it was a bit strange that I only had the picture of Chloe in my wallet and no other kids. Because I didn't have kids with myself, so you know, it was just a picture of her.
And as soon as I seen Chloe there, I just dropped my bag and I just ran straight to the police sort of thing to get help. Maybe she still might have been alive or something, I wasn't too sure, but I just ran.
Yeah, what sort of went through your mind in relation to what might have happened to her?
She looks like she's been molested, threatening to tell or something, and they've killed her or something. Or
So you said threatened her?
I'll say she's threatened to tell or something, because that's the way she was, sort of thing. If anybody's done something to her, she ran straight to her mum and dad and told them, so, you know, which was good.
Yeah, of course. And what did you think? What gave you the impression that she'd been molested?
Because the way she was laying and the lower half of her clothes was moved. As soon as I just seen like that half and naked little body sort of thing, that's when I just ran.
They kept on asking me the same questions, but in different ways. And I kept on answering basically the same way. One at a time, they used to like leave the room or whatever. And I used to say, "Oh, can I go to the toilet?" "No, we're not finished with it yet. Stay here." And next thing I know, a forensic officer came in. They took all my clothes. I was standing there completely naked. They took photographs of my body, took penile swabs, took fingernail clippings, saliva swabs. They put me through the whole 9 yards.
Nice and wet?
I felt degraded, humiliated. They asked if I wanted a lawyer or a family member in there. I said no, I don't need one. I cooperated with whatever they wanted.
A fucking poor bloke. They put him through hell.
Because they thought he did it?
Yeah, they thought he'd done it.
There were lots of small things about DUANE's story that were unusual, and when you put them all together, it made him a very, very strong suspect for Chloe's murder. But as it turned out, it was just coincidence, and these things were factual, and he was telling the truth.
He said something drew him there. I reckon it was Chloe. I reckon it was Chloe's son, but oh, fuck. I reckon it was Chloe calling out to him saying, you know, "Uncle, come and get me."
I think it's only natural that that you turn your mind to the victim and you turn your mind to the innocence of the victim in this case, and certainly it lit a few fires into a few bellies.
The detective in charge, Roger Best, briefs a team of 30 homicide officers. They have to keep searching for more suspects.
There were motivated detectives in there ready to go out knowing that they were quite likely going to be talking to a murderer and quite likely going to be uncovering that vital piece of evidence that was going to link a person to Chloe's murder.
Detectives now focus on the darkest of questions. While they can see she died with plastic bags over her head, who would do this and why? Will they strike again? With a long list of known criminals, including sex offenders at the Caravan Park, police were hoping for something to help narrow down their search. A key breakthrough is only hours away. Forensics officers will soon lift a print from one of the shopping bags used to suffocate Chloe. The killer's left thumbprint will point the finger of blame and hand detectives the killer's name.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. What he done to her, the way he left her, the way I found her, yeah. Yeah. That image haunts me every day. Every single day.
When was the last time that you heard voices?
I was hearing them today. I was hearing them a fair bit today, so I don't know exactly how much, but I was hearing them a fair bit. Because once I get something set in my mind, I just can't stop myself no matter how hard I try.
Your brother-in-law rang us up, you know, in the afternoon. He goes, "Pete," he goes, "You've been watching the news?" I said, "No." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Chloe's dead." I said, "No, she's not." He said, "Yeah, it's on the news. Out at Lansvale." I've gone, "No, it can't be Chloe."
Peter said it on the TV, and then I just remember I just screamed. Because all I heard Peter say at first, no, it can't be her.
Tonight, family and friends in mourning after a little girl is murdered. Good evening. A 5-year-old girl has been abducted and murdered in Sydney's southwest. Little Chloe Hoson disappeared from a Lansvale Caravan Park late yesterday. A relative found her body this morning.
When you get a missing person, they're usually found fairly quickly, but she still wasn't found that night and then the following morning. So as the hours were ticking by, people's hopes were falling. And then we found out the worst.
Residents of the Caravan Park who searched for hours on Friday night for Chloe believe her body may have been dumped after the search was called off.
It's like she was a sweet little kid, used to run around playing with all the kids, I used to see him mucking around with these ones even, and 5 years old, no way anything could happen, especially here. Like, I live here and I'll be moving out as soon as my bond runs out now. Like, there's no way I'd think something like that would ever happen here.
I remember asking my dad what was wrong, and then just seeing the look on my dad's face, his mouth dropped, and obviously I was only 6 or 7, but I can remember that, the look on his face, he was in shock.
How did you find out what had happened to Chloe?
My dad ended up coming in and sitting both me and my sister down. He just basically said to me that the police have found Chloe, and I said, "Is she okay?" And he just looked at me and he didn't say anything. And I just said, "Dad, is she okay?" And he just shook his head at me. And I knew, even though I was so young, I knew something wasn't right. And then he gave me a big cuddle and he just wouldn't let me go for probably like 20 minutes.
Her best friend's body had just been found on the bank of the river, and Hope Williams, just 8 years old, had so many questions.
And I said to my mum, I said, but why? Like, I wanted to know why. And my mum couldn't answer it, and she said, Hope, I don't know. She goes, things like this happen. And I said, but why? But why Chloe? Like, it could have been me.
What kind of questions were the police asking you about Chloe?
Where we used to play, how long we'd play for, if we were supervised, if Chloe or I used to speak to anybody, if anyone had spoken to us on multiple occasions, if I felt odd about anyone, is it like Chloe to disappear, like wanting to run away, did she seem upset, asking me questions about the last time that I had saw her.
Just after 5 p.m. at the park, and Chloe's body is finally removed from the riverbank and taken to the morgue. Meanwhile, dozens of police are working overtime. Forensic officers are testing samples taken from the park and Chloe's body. Essential work to unearth clues to catch a child killer.
Sunday morning started as Saturday finished, turning our minds to the list of people we'd identified as persons of interest from the Lansvale Caravan Park. Given the list of people we identified as persons of interest, we were quietly confident that our murderer was going to be one of those listed.
Police say they're following new leads in their hunt for the killer of 5-year-old Chloe Hoson.
More evidence was collected, including a piece of rope.
Then, a breakthrough that would change everything.
And we were fully expecting to get some information out soon from our crime scene experts in relation to what they'd uncovered. And of course that came. That came at around lunchtime on Sunday with a phone call from our major crime fingerprint section, who told us they'd found the fingerprint of a known person on the plastic bag over Chloe's head.
Who was that?
They were able to match that fingerprint to a previous print taken from Timothy Edward Kosovich.
Timothy Edward Kosovich lived in the very same caravan park and only a few metres away from Chloe and her family.
So of course our investigation immediately took a focus on this person.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that a thumbprint on what was effectively the murder weapon would be enough to lock up a suspect, but this case is a long way from wrapped up.
On its own, it certainly is something significant, but likewise there could be another explanation. The person who belonged to that print could work in a shopping centre and have helped pack that bag.
While police set their sights on Timothy Kosovich, Chloe's mum Karina is taken to do the most impossible of tasks for any parent.
They took us to identify her body. I remember being in this little room and being told that we just had to wait a moment. And I remember looking at Chloe and you could only see bits of her face because she was covered with a sheet. And there were still bits of grass and sticks or something around her face and in her hair. And then within a split second I was pushed back out.
That was your little girl?
Yeah. And I knew it was her, but I still didn't want to believe that it was her. Because she wasn't moving anymore.
I'm not going to make any comment in relation to how she was found or what was found on her at the time she was discovered until we get the results of the post-mortem.
The post-mortem confirms that Chloe Hoson died when those 2 plastic shopping bags were tied on her head, suffocated. After the thumbprint match, a magistrate gives detectives a search warrant to go through caravan number C27, rented by Timothy Kosovich.
Boys. 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 Clear, clear, clear. The premises are cleared. It doesn't appear that anybody is in these premises at the moment.
He's not at the caravan, but police find him nearby at his parents' place. He agrees to come back to the station and participate in an interview. He's not under arrest and is free to go at any time, but he appears confident that detectives have no idea what he's been up to, answering all their questions.
Can you tell me your full name?
Timothy Edward Kosovich.
And can you spell your surname for me?
K-O-S-O-W-I-C-Z.
Can you tell me what your movements were Friday? Do you remember what you were doing?
I went home, watched, I think, Neighbours, and then I think I watched The Simpsons. I'm not sure about that. And then in between that time, I was cooking myself some dinner and the police arrived and asked me questions. And I said I didn't know anything, and then I went to sleep after about, because I go to bed pretty early, about as soon as The Simpsons were finished, I think.
Can you remember getting up during the night on Friday night for any reason?
No.
Did you get out of bed at any time, say Friday night, Saturday morning, before that 9 o'clock?
Not that I know of.
So between, say, the early hours of Saturday morning, around 2 a.m. or 3 a.m, did you get out of bed and leave your cabin then?
No.
And you know that for sure?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
What I would like to do done now is I'll do a walkthrough around the outskirts of the building and videotape the outskirts of the building, and then we'll do the entire outskirts, rotate back that way, then we'll walk through the premises and video. You want to try and keep still? Walk through the premises and try and videotape that.
While detectives search through the caravan, back at Cabramatta Police Station, Timothy Kosovich has an answer for everything.
You say the police came, spoke to you?
Yeah.
What did they speak to you about?
They asked me whether I'd seen a missing girl, and I said no, I haven't seen a missing girl.
We've got a photo of the young girl who was murdered. Do you know that young girl?
I've seen her around, I think.
Do you know where you've seen her?
In the middle of the caravan park, probably.
Do you know her name?
No. Well, you said that her name was Chloe.
Chloe Hoson. Did you know that?
No.
Go up and just have a quick look on the roof to see if anything is up on the roof.
Forensic officers are looking for any trace Chloe Hoson was in the caravan, coating every surface of the kitchen in fingerprint dust. Was this the murder scene? At this stage, police are not certain.
Is there anything else you want to say about this matter?
No.
Do you know who killed Chloe?
No, I don't.
Kosovich is being interviewed inside here for 2 hours and 12 minutes. Again and again, he denies any involvement in Chloe's death, although he does concede that the children in the caravan park annoyed him to no end.
You mentioned noise from the kids.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you didn't want them around?
Basically, yeah. Besides, I've got other things to do than have kids around in my place. I basically asked them to go away, and if they didn't go away, I closed the door and closed the blinds.
We've been told by people at the park that those kids have come to your van on occasion.
They might have come to my van, I'm not sure about that.
Why are you not sure?
Because there's kids everywhere in the caravan park. I remember kids have come over to my place to play with my cat.
Residents say she loved kittens, this one named after her.
She loved the little cat. She'd pick them up and give them to us to look after.
Do you remember if Chloe was one of those kids?
No, I don't. But I told them to go away, basically.
Why was that?
Because I don't want kids in my place.
He was confident in his interview, and he gave answers that were sufficient for us by the end of it to release him.
He wasn't put through what I got put through. You know, he went there, told his story, and they released him. Why wasn't he put through the forensic treatment that I was. He held there for hours at end. And they release him because they think his stories make sense. He's legit.
Detectives just don't have enough to hold Kosovic, and the interview is wrapped up. He's allowed to go home at 7:39 p.m. Although a key breakthrough isn't far away. In just 50 minutes' time, detectives will find yet more incriminating evidence at the caravan park, and that will change everything.
I'm hearing voices all the time. I'm just not concentrating. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but yeah, I'm coping, I suppose.
How are you feeling at the moment?
Alright.
Right, now you said, talked about hearing voices. Are you hearing any at the moment?
No.
Okay, the time now is 8:29 p.m. I'm Detective Senior Sergeant McNeil. It's Sunday, the 9th of November, the year 2003. We're still at van C27 at Lansvale Caravan Park. Sergeant Cheney's just indicated to me that they've located a love heart type of sticker, which is bright and shiny, which is similar to a love heart sticker that was located on the victim's clothing. We are currently applying for an extension of the search warrant, but the indication so far is that this may now develop into a crime scene.
The tiny stickers are a massive find, a direct link between Timothy's caravan and the crime scene, because those stickers were also found on Chloe's body.
Okay, the time now is 10:15 p.m. on Sunday.
Their work at the caravan park is a long way from done. The more time they spend there, the more they find. It's going to be a very long night. Many police won't sleep.
The gentleman was located from the bedroom, I believe, a black travel type bag with a number of clothes on it. We just want to capture that on video. It's been brought into the middle of the living lounge room, dining room.
Police soon realise that the bag they're searching through has been put to a very sinister use. They find more than just traces of blood.
I think that's about as close as I can come in. And remove it now. There's an area of what appears to be blood at the bottom of the bag. That's in the same area of the bag where I recovered that sheet earlier, the bloodstained sheet.
Time now is 12:50 a.m. At this stage we are treating this location as a crime scene. We're about to change tapes, and the videotape that's currently in the camera is going back to the police station with Constable Messeltook, and will be utilised at the police station.
Utilised to break a killer. Kosovic's story is about to unravel. Detectives travel to his parents' home, but this time he's placed under arrest and brought back here to Cabramatta Police Station. He's interviewed again. It starts at 2:46 a.m. And while his story hasn't changed at all, detectives are about to show him what they found in his caravan.
It was the search warrant that had given us the information sufficient to justify arresting him. So I thought it was only fitting to show him that search warrant and see what he had to say about those items.
So how did you break him?
Showing him the search warrant and taking him to that point of looking back that we had murdered Chloe forcing him to look back at what he'd done, I think played a significant role. It was at that moment that he said those words of, I think I need a lawyer.
Hairs, fibres, fingerprints and other genetic material belonging to Chloe Hoson and things connected with the offence of murder.
Of course, it was only when perhaps overwhelming evidence was about to be put to him that he decided to tell us exactly what he'd done.
Do you agree that I then spoke to you in the cell and you told me something?
I told you that I killed the girl.
Right, and you also told me something in relation to the videotape. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't want to see the videotape.
This is why Kosowich didn't want to see the video inside his caravan, bedsheets soaked in his young victim's blood, where he had done the unspeakable. Then Kosowich doesn't just admit he's the killer, he details his dark and depraved deeds.
I couldn't kill her, so I put a plastic bag over her head, and then I put another plastic bag over her head, and that killed her.
By hearing him tell me what he did to that little girl, it was the first time I've ever had an actual physical reaction. I suddenly realised where that phrase, makes your blood boil, comes from, because that's exactly what it felt like.
I can't control myself when my voices bug me. I get violent, I get aggro, and I don't know what I'm doing.
He finished telling me what he did, and then we charged him.
What is it in the videotape that you don't want to see?
The blood-stained blanket. Anything to do with my place.
Number of items on the bench here, which include rolling tobacco.
Kosowich claimed that the thing that sent him into the rage against the young girl was when she knocked over a bowl of marijuana in his caravan.
At that, I lost the plot. I don't know, I blacked out, and the next thing you know, I was strangling her in my bedroom.
He was able to recount in significant detail those moments of murdering Chloe and what happened after it. And he gave it calmly, and it was quite chilling.
Matter of fact?
It was matter of fact. You know, obviously he was seeing it in his mind's eyes. He took us through what had happened, but I don't think he left anything out.
It makes me sick in the stomach to know how close it was to us. It makes me wonder, did anyone hear her cry? Did anyone actually see her go in there?
Can I ask you to keep this quiet from my parents so that they don't find out?
I'll cease the videotape now. It is 4:11 a.m. on Monday the 10th of November 2003. I'll cease the videotape, then I'll lock the doors. There's no need for us to enter there anymore, except pull the cord out and turn the lights off.
They told us at one stage that they had a suspect, which was Timothy, but they had to release him because they didn't have enough evidence. And then on the Monday they came back out and they've gone, they've re-picked up Timothy and they've formally charged him. I think everybody cried.
After confessing, Kosowich is taken from Cabramatta Police Station to Liverpool Local Court. Karina and the rest of Chloe's family find themselves in the spotlight outside court as their little girl's killer fronts a magistrate for the first time.
Start off by thanking everybody that helped with the search for Chloe, and for her brother, for her uncle DUANE, who found her. We just can't understand why somebody would want to do this to Chloe, because she was just the perfect little girl. I was still expecting to see his face come up on the screen, and all of a sudden, door opens up to the side of the dock, and he walks. Oh, couldn't believe it. I mean, he looked normal.
Apparently it was only a quick 30-second hearing, bail was denied or whatever, and there was a big uproar inside the courtroom apparently. Brother almost got his hands around him, so then they were all marched out of the courtroom. He was taken out, back to the cells.
The family of schoolgirl Chloe Hoson had to be restrained in court today when they confronted the man charged with raping and strangling the 5-year-old.
As Kosovich sat motionless in the dock, Chloe's mother looked right at him and said, "You're a sick man, you don't even care." Then loud sobbing gave way to anger as several family members lunged at Kosovich and the courtroom erupted. Police officers restrained 5 of Chloe's relatives, including her father, Michael Hoson, whose anger continued outside.
Mick would have killed him. If Mick would have got his hands on him that first court date, we wouldn't be worrying about sitting down now talking about it, because there'd be no Timothy to talk about.
This is the man who's killed Chloe. This is the guy who did it. He's a murderer, and people were dirty on him. They wanted him to pay for what he did to Chloe. That was the mood. There was a lot of revenge in that courtroom. People were sick of it. They wanted justice.
Rage. I felt it, everyone felt it.
Fuck your camera off, dickhead!
You burned from the inside. You wanted to grab him around the throat and put him through what he put Chloe through. Me and my brother, we actually jumped for him. I ended up having a seizure from it, but we couldn't get hold of him and we wanted to.
Chloe's aunt, KELLI KANE, was among the family members in court, laying eyes on the killer for the first time.
We got this close to his neck, and we just had all these police just jump on us and bombard us, and I don't understand to this day why they didn't let us just get him just a little bit, after what he did.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
One of her favourite songs she used to sing was "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. If you see a shark, don't forget to scream," and she'd scream, you just can't replace it.
Don't forget to scream.
I feel so empty and lost. I feel my heart break. But I close my eyes and I remember your smile. I remember your giggle, and that makes me smile. Your voice was like an angel. Your singing filled me with happiness. You'll always be in my heart. I will think of you. I will be filled with gladness. She'll be 21 years old now. In January we should have celebrated her 21st birthday.
It was already hard and I didn't think it could get any harder. But then the second that they lower that coffin into the ground is a whole different new feeling altogether. It makes it pretty much final. And I kept thinking to myself, if they didn't lower her, then she can't be gone.
Could you ever forgive Timothy Kosowicz?
No, no way. I don't know how people can.
And what made him, what brought him to do all those things? Like, it's not every day that everybody does that. So what the hell was he thinking?
I couldn't kill her, so I put a plastic bag over her head, and then I put another plastic bag over her head, and it killed her.
Despite his very detailed and graphic confession, Kosowicz pleads not guilty due to mental illness. In the weeks after the killing, he tells 2 psychiatrists that he'd heard command voices, one male and one female, telling him to kill. But there'd been no mention of that during the much earlier police interview. Either way, on March 10, 2005, Kosowicz has his day in court, but there's no jury. It's a judge-alone hearing, and it's all done in a single day.
I can remember the case as probably the most distressing case I ever heard, because of the victim being only 5 at the time.
It is rare for a retired judge to speak, particularly about cases they've presided over, but David Patten remembers the case of Chloe Hoson very well.
I just remember the case and remember the loss of such a young life.
It breaks your heart.
It does.
Good evening. The killer of a 5-year-old Sydney girl has been spared a long sentence in a jail cell. A judge found Timothy Kosowicz not guilty of murder on the grounds of mental illness.
Timothy Kosowicz suffocated Chloe Hoson, then sexually assaulted her dead body. But the judge blames the community. Chloe's family blames the man who took her from them.
Fair enough, he's being incarcerated in a mental institution. That's an easy way out for him, in a sense of it's easy to basically say, I hear a voice, so I can go do something.
Both the Crown and Defence agreed he should be found not guilty due to mental illness based on the assessment of 2 psychiatrists.
So how do they get it? Does he get not guilty? Like, honestly, that's...
What do you think that does to a family to hear that the guy who admitted killing their 5-year-old girl like they did is not guilty?
For the family, it is like a death sentence themselves. You know, they can never get justice.
The evidence virtually was all one way. There was a psychiatrist called by the Crown who was cross-examined by counsel for the defendant. He took the view that at the time Chloe died, the defendant was mentally ill to the extent that he didn't know what he was doing was wrong.
I don't know, I blacked out, and next thing you know, I was strangling her.
He told them what he did. He told them everything he did, all that we know of. But said that he had a blackout.
Well, I hear voices in the background all the time.
The 2 psychiatrists also told the court that it was very possible that Kosowicz made the whole thing up about hearing those command voices, and that's a possibility that has long troubled Chloe's family.
I don't think he heard voices at all. I don't think there were voices at all. I think it's all bullshit. I reckon the whole thing is crap. No, he doesn't have voices. I don't care what his mother says. I don't care what his dad says. I don't care what the so-called experts say that were in court that day. They sat with him, what, for a couple of hours twice. You can't tell. I mean, I could sit there and say that I hear voices. How do you know?
I can't control myself when my voices bug me. I get violent, I get aggro, and I don't know what I'm doing.
All I'm thinking is, looking at that tape, is that here's a guy who murdered an innocent 5-year-old girl, and yet he was trying to defend himself.
He waited and waited and waited in that caravan park, in that caravan, with her on that lying on that bed next to him for hours. And that fucking infuriates me even more just thinking about it. He waited until all the SES had left. All the volunteers had gone. The police had gone. The police helicopter with the infrared had gone. To then callously just take her over and discard her. How does that sound like somebody that, blacked out? That's premeditated. That took planning.
So, he blacked out, but does remember hearing command voices and all those things he did to her.
From the minute that she walked into his caravan, he could recite everything that happened. How's that he blacked out? From the time that he murdered her, from putting one bag over her head to putting another one over her because she wouldn't die. Strangling her. Dumping her in his wardrobe. Leaving the caravan. And then going back. And doing what he did do, interfering with her. How's that blacking out? How I don't understand. I'd love for somebody to explain it to me. I'd love for a doctor to sit in front of me and explain it to me. I'd love for the judge to sit in front of me and explain how he came to that judgment.
Yes, well, I mean, that's what happened. But the psychiatrists took that into account, both of them, and nonetheless found that at the time of the killing, which was the only relevant time, he was mentally ill to such an extent that he didn't know that what he was doing was wrong.
The other troubling factor in all his evidence is the way that Timothy Kosovic covered up his crime. He clearly knew what he had done was wrong, and he lied to police to cover his tracks. Even in the hours after Chloe went missing, but before he dumped her body just up here.
He answered the door to those police while Chloe was dead in a bag in that cupboard, in that cabin, just metres from the police while I was talking to him.
There's a large black bag here as well, which shows splatterings of something on top of it.
Yeah, he was very relaxed, and he was able to lie to those police and lie to me.
A confident liar.
He was able to maintain his lies for a long period of time.
Justice Batten recommended those authorities take into account the horrific circumstances of Chloe's death and that the accused is quite capable of being a plausible liar.
He lied, he covered his tracks, he denied it.
He did it very well. Too well.
Justice Batten did question whether Kosovic had heard any voices at all or just made it up, zeroing in on the cross-examination of one of the psychiatrists. He noted possibly undermining this credibility, to my mind, are such matters as his normal presentation throughout the day, especially in the period soon after he killed Chloe, his lies to the police when they called at his cabin about 6 p.m, his rather elaborate steps to secrete and dispose of Chloe's body, his lies to the police during the first record of interview, his failure during the second interview to claim that voices commanded him to kill Chloe, and his sexual assault upon Chloe's body, which, in my view, as he seemed to admit, was for his gratification.
In those circumstances, what options does a judge have when that's the evidence and they're the submissions?
Well, theoretically there's an option. The judge is not bound by the submissions, but the judge is bound to decide cases according to the evidence, and the evidence was all one way.
How does that sit with you?
Oh, well, that was part of my duty. The evidence was all one way, and I, in practical terms, didn't have an alternative.
The not guilty verdict does not mean Timothy Kosovic has got away with murder. He's to be held in strict custody until authorities decide he's no longer a danger to the community or himself.
When the review panel comes up, hopefully they take their time to consider the fact that he has done what he's done and they won't release him.
I think the public is so sick of the mentally unstable argument. They want justice. this boy did it to an innocent girl. The way this little girl lost her life, the fear she would have been through, it's just like she would have been a terrified little girl, and to have one person overpower her and she had no one that could help her.
She would have been so scared.
Other than fear, I don't know what else she was thinking. I could only imagine. I often think, did she cry out for me even at least once? Did she get the chance to even cry out for me?
Such a horrible waste.
It is. It is. Those things unfortunately happen, but looking at it from the victim's point of view, it was a horrible waste.
Not guilty by reason of mental illness. That meant Kosovic escaped any criminal conviction and did no real jail time at all, although he wasn't free to walk the streets until now. Tim, how can we be sure it's safe having you out in the streets?
Not pissed off.
This guy could be just anywhere now. You know, we could pass him in the street. Really, we could literally pass this guy in the street. Here's a guy who's walking around who's killed a little girl, and the family still hasn't got justice.
Tears my stomach that he's out walking around, living his life normal, while she's in the ground. Her whole life was taken from her, but yet he's got his life back, doing what he wants to do and go wherever he wants to go.
You shouldn't be walking around. You shouldn't be allowed to get back out on the streets. Chloe can't walk the streets. She can't play with her brothers or sisters. Yet this bloke, he can go and do whatever he wants, and that's wrong.
Right when Chloe should have been turning 20, her family just happened to hear her killer was out, living free, having never served a day in jail for his role in her death, found not guilty due to mental illness. This crucial information wasn't conveyed by any official agency. Her family asked 7 News to investigate, and what started as hurtful speculation on the grapevine turned out to be a crushing truth.
I just don't understand how any person that could take a child's life be ever released again.
I honestly didn't think he was out. I never thought he would be, not this quick. I was furious. I was furious at the system. I was furious at the doctors, you know, furious at the judge, furious at everybody.
I wasn't even told by the authorities, so I'm still upset about that.
Did Karina know?
No.
No idea?
They had no idea.
No one had told Karina?
No.
Chloe's mum?
Yep, Chloe's mum. Nobody told her. Corrective Services didn't tell her. Justice didn't tell her. Victims support didn't tell her. You know?
The bloke who killed your daughter is out?
Yeah. The bloke that killed your daughter couldn't, you know, walk the streets, couldn't go and buy his smokes, go and buy whatever he wants. You know? Nobody told her.
What about Tim's right to privacy?
Fuck that. He has none. Excuse the French, but he has no right to privacy. You know, like he took a child's life. He has no right whatsoever. I don't care what anybody says. My personal opinion is, you know, he's worse than a maggot dog.
Chloe's uncle Peter Chalker also contacted police, reaching out to the detective Roger Best, who locked up her killer.
The police officer that arrested him, that charged him, he didn't know. He didn't know that this bloke was getting day release. How can that be?
And then we come and find ourselves today where he is walking amongst us again in our community. And, no doubt, a medical expert has turned their minds to that very fact, and I have no doubt that they're aware that making a mistake, the consequences of making a mistake in this matter are quite literally deadly.
After investigating for several months, 7 News tracked down child killer Timothy Kosovic, holidaying with his family in country Victoria. And take a look at this. Here he is, being collected by his mum Colleen from Melbourne Airport, identified publicly for the first time since the verdict. He appears friendly, relaxed, confident, even sharing his smokes. But no one around him has any idea who he is, what he's done, or is capable of doing.
Flying on planes, travelling, going interstate, I mean, that's an absolute joke. Whatever happened to, you do a crime, you're supposed to do the time.
Then his mum drives 2 hours back to their home near Maryborough in rural Victoria. We're given quite the reception by Timothy's father, Edward.
What are you doing? You can tell the person that told you his flight details and everything else, right, that he's on it, we're onto it. There's only one person that can be.
Mate, we didn't know his flight details. There seems to be something of a pattern, a family history with mental illness. One of Tim's older sisters, Donna Kosovic, also has convictions for violent offences, deliberately setting fire to their unit while her partner was asleep inside. After the pair argued, he later woke to the sound of a smoke alarm with an uncontainable fire in the spare bedroom. That was in 2013. In 2016, Donna was given a 2-year suspended jail sentence. We only have Timothy's version of what happened inside his caravan that afternoon with Chloe. Many have questioned whether his account is entirely truthful and ask, could he do it again?
He's not spent one day in prison. Not one day. He spent it in a mental institution, being drugged up all the time. Now they think, oh, he's fit to be back in the society. And if he wasn't taking his medication when he done it, what's to say he's not going to do it again?
He's unlikely to agree to an interview, so we approach him direct for comment as they stop in at Woolies, and that's where, for the first time in more than a decade, we hear from the child killer. Tim, how can we be sure it's safe having you out in the streets?
Oh, piss off.
You haven't done a day in jail. Mate, don't touch the microphone.
Don't.
You haven't done a day in jail, mate. How can we be confident you're safe to be out on the streets?
Okay.
Do you have anything to say to Chloe's parents? How does it feel to have your freedom, mate? You sorry for what you did to Chloe? How can we be sure you won't do it again? Shutting himself away from scrutiny, Timothy Kosovic leaves all the talking to his mum. Colleen,
yes,
how does it feel to have your son back?
If it wasn't for the incompetence of the mental health service, this would never have happened. 2 weeks before my son entered the system, he went to the hospital. He asked them to admit him to hospital because his voices were, let me see, they were command voices, okay? And it didn't have anything to do with drugs. Tim has always had a mental illness.
I find that really interesting that he went to get help in the few weeks before. Imagine what would have happened if he'd got the help he received. Like, he probably knew that he was capable of something like this and he was trying to stop it. And for me, I think that is absolutely tragic, because had he got the help, would Chloe still be here today?
It prompts the agonising question, just how many times could Chloe's death have been prevented? We know that 2 weeks before he killed her, Timothy Kosowich presented here to Liverpool Hospital seeking to be admitted, but he was turned away. The judge also heard that his serious mental health issues were first diagnosed here back on New Year's Eve 1999. Back then he told staff that he could hear voices warning him that bikie gangs were out to get him. 4 months later, again at Liverpool Hospital, he presented with a psychotic episode, aggression and violence, but he refused assessment. He was caught by police in Goulburn in June, driving his mum's stolen car. Officers found a knife, a noose and razor blades and took him to hospital as he again talked about bikie gangs planting listening devices under his skin. In early December 2000, Kosowich was found sitting on top of this traffic signal box right in the middle of the Sydney CBD. Police had to be called because he was becoming aggressive and complained that the sky was rumbling. The officers took him up the road to St Vincent's Hospital in a psychotic state. And that year didn't end well for Kosowich. His own father took out an apprehended violence order against him after he assaulted him with a cup full of hot coffee. No surprise, he was booted out of home and disappeared for the better part of 12 months until police caught up with him in Western Australia. In Subiaco, he told more delusional stories of Gothics taking over police stations. Kosowich was angry and threatening towards medical professionals. They kept him in just 5 days. When released, he told them he was going to Darwin and staff urged him to get help there. But by December 2002, he'd made his way back to Sydney, breaching his family's AVO. The warning signs were well and truly building for Kosowich. At the start of the year, when he would kill a complete stranger, he went on a bender of amphetamines and cannabis that triggered hallucinations where he believed that spiders and snakes were trying to bite him. He stripped off all his clothes and ran into a nearby pub, completely naked. You knew the warning signs were there.
We knew the warning signs, so did the hospital.
How hard was it for you to get help?
Almost impossible. Not almost impossible, it was impossible. If you read, or if you could have read, all the paperwork that I sent in begging the hospital to keep my son in hospital because he wasn't well, then we wouldn't be going through this right now.
He was on drugs, he had a mental health problem. Those two are just a terrible combination.
Court papers also show that in the decade before he killed Chloe, Timothy Kosowich was heavily using marijuana. A month before, he came here to Liverpool Hospital and told staff he hadn't been taking his medication for the 3 months before that. Staff said he was having symptoms of relapsing, was hearing voices, and was a real risk of becoming aggressive.
Do you remember what you did at your girlfriend's place?
Maybe, well, maybe we had a session or something like that.
A session?
Yeah.
And what are you referring to?
Just smoking dope. Well, because we were smoking dope that day, but I don't know what time we were smoking dope at.
Less than a month before he killed Chloe Hoson, Timothy Kosowich complained that he could hear voices roaring inside his head, and he was aware of violent tendencies building within himself. Then again on October 27, he came back here to the clinic at Liverpool Hospital, but was just given medicine and sent home. Just 11 days later, he killed Chloe Hoson. Putting 2 plastic bags, like the ones in the shopping trolley behind you, over a young girl's head, a defenceless young girl. How does he do that?
I can't answer that question. Okay, you would have to go into the mind of someone who has a mental illness. You have to go into the mind of someone who has command voices. We can't just blame drugs and things. Tim has always had a mental illness, even from a little fella.
For his mum to even defend that disgusts me. Boils my blood, like I can feel myself shaking. That's just another one to add to the numbers of people out there that are getting away with crimes because of mental illness. You still did a crime, you were still aware of what you were doing. Doesn't matter if you were substance abuse or whatever his excuse was. There's no excuse, and he should pay for what he's done. But instead he's walking our streets And there could be another Chloe, a Jessica, a Jasmine, could be anyone. And I'm not okay with the fact that it could be my daughter, could be my friend's daughter, it could be anyone else's daughter or son even. And that's what doesn't sit well with me.
Is he safe being on the streets now?
He is very safe being on the streets.
How can you be sure?
How can you be sure? I am with him 24/7, right?
He's just caught a plane down from Sydney.
Yes. Yes, he has.
He was unsupervised on that flight.
That's right. Because
you're not with him 24/7.
No, when he's here. When he's here with me, I'm with him 24/7.
What if someone had spilled his drink on the plane?
Tim has medication, he's medicated. He's also gone to a lot of rehabilitation. We have gone through and jumped through a lot of hoops to make sure that nothing like this can happen.
How sure can you be? What guarantee can you give the families here that their young children are safe?
Because I know my son, right? And I know through medication and rehabilitation that I know he's safe.
You hope?
I know. I don't hope, I know.
It's a joke that he's been released into his mother's custody. She couldn't control him back in those days. How's she going to control him now?
You say you've got a phone with phone numbers on speed dial if
Yep.
you need help.
Yep.
What if you can't get to the phone in time? I mean, is that enough, having a phone?
If I can get the phone in time, I'll knock him out myself.
Timothy's mum says if he does the wrong thing, I'll whip him into line. I'll stop him.
Well, where was his mother when he was killing that 5-year-old girl?
He just watched her. He watched the last breath that she took. He would have been sitting there looking at the fear in her eyes as she passed away. How is that human? How you can sit there and watch somebody gasping for air. How you can do that, I don't know. After he finished doing what he'd done, he just put her into a suitcase, walked her out, down right past Karina and Michael's caravan, out the front gate, over a bridge, walked down the side, and then threw her down like she was rubbish.
Like he was taking out the rubbish. Like it was nothing. And then he probably slept well that night. No remorse, no I'm sorry, no nothing. No explanation, nothing.
I mean, how can you have somebody like that walking the streets?
And that's the scary part. Anyone who's got a child would be frightened to hear that.
You're a monster. You don't deserve to be walking the streets. She should be here and you shouldn't be. You don't deserve anything. You don't deserve happiness. You don't deserve anything. You're a coward. To take a child's life away, an innocent child's life away for doing nothing. Just a pig. It's scum. Just so much anger. Just hearing his name, it just... yeah. No words.
Even though there were aspects of this matter, which indicated that he had deliberately done these things and he had deliberately set himself up in such a way to avoid any liability, his psychosis was such that he was literally living a parallel life, almost simultaneously. And of course, as a result, the Crown could not prove beyond reasonable doubt. In fact, I would doubt that the Crown would have been able to prove on the balance of probabilities that when he killed Chloe, he was clear of mind, knowing what he was doing when he killed her, because his psychosis prevented him from actually knowing that.
Victims advocate Howard Brown says the family should have been told he was being released. He also points to new laws being drafted in New South Wales so that offenders aren't found not guilty on grounds of mental illness, instead guilty but not responsible.
Because to hear that a person is not guilty says not responsible. But you have a dead person you loved, a person that you have to bury, a person that you are never going to see again, and no one is held to account for that. So when you hear not guilty, it is a secondary form of abuse. And people find that really difficult to understand.
Things need to change. It really does. Somebody's got to have a hard look at the laws. They've got to change the mental health rules. They've got to change whatever.
I think the system's a joke. And it's a big overhaul. I've thought that from day one when they sentenced him. As soon as they said that, you know, he had mental illness, that you can't be accountable for what he done, I lost hope in the system.
Where do you think Tim should be right now?
In a jail, in a real jail, where he gets the same treatment as someone that normally takes someone else's life.
Do you understand Chloe's mum wishing that he was in jail?
Oh, of course I can understand that. Look, nothing anyone can say and do can fix the past. All we can do is move forward, okay, to the future.
It's a future he stole from Chloe Hoson, a future that looks like this for Kosovic, moving freely around the suburbs, living in amongst school communities and near childcare centres and primary schools, free to head to the shops whenever he pleases.
Hey Tim, how have you been? Are you still hearing voices?
Go away, please.
We caught up with Timothy Kosovic again after he settled into a Sydney address.
You're living around a lot of school children. Do they bother you at all?
But if there is any assurance that could be given, once again, Kosovic, just like last time, is saying nothing at all.
Can you just tell us how you are? People will want to know that it's safe having you out on the streets again.
Police know where he is living and can check up on him. But if and when he moves on, his new neighbours will have no idea of his past and what he's capable of doing to a young child.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think of her. Of the mum, of little Chloe, there's not one day that doesn't go by.
No death is ever acceptable, but when it was completely preventable, someone should be held to account for that, and not just the offender. You know, we allegedly put all these services in places to make us all be safe within our community, and yet time and time again, government agencies fail the community, but it's the victims who pay the cost.
He had told them that he had put a plastic bag over her head and had said that didn't work, so he put the second bag over her head, and ever since then I have a phobia of plastic bags. If I look at one for too long, I start dry reaching.
Karina was overcome by anxiety and developed the panic disorder agoraphobia. For years, she never left home.
I fear going outside, especially when there's people out there.
Why is that?
Because there's bad people out there. And I've always been afraid that someone could easily just take my life. And I'm afraid to die, especially in a horrible way. Nothing will ever make me believe otherwise, because if that could happen to Chloe, then that can happen to me.
Your son is sitting here in the car, a free man. Her daughter is in the ground. One mum to another, what would you say to her?
If I could give my life to get her back, I would.
But we all know you can't do that. And it's a lovely sentiment, but what do you want to say to Karina? Your son's free, her daughter will never be free.
All I can say is, what do you want me to say? How sorry I am? I am. I'm devastated. That little girl is in my heart every day. Every single day. I have a picture on my fridge of her.
Why do you have it there?
To remind myself, okay? To remind myself that the tragedy should never have happened.
What does it say about Chloe for him to be out?
It was like they were saying that she died for nothing. Yeah. That her memory didn't matter. Her innocence didn't matter.
I believe he is pure evil. And I don't believe he should be walking the streets.
I don't think he should ever be released. Because I would never be released of the pain that he caused me forever.
If you could say something to Chloe, is there anything on your mind you'd...
That I miss her. Yeah. There was lots of times where I'd go to my dad's after that, after we had found out about her, just waiting for her to knock on our door, and it never happened.
I miss her. And if I could, I'd change places with her in a heartbeat.
The waste of a girl who would be 21 years old now, like a woman, and to have that life ripped away from her because someone took it from her. For me, I think that is the worst part of it. The loss of this human life, a little girl, an innocent, is the worst part.
I've got 2 kids of my own now. They're 3 and 5, so I've got a 5-year-old daughter. So that hits a little hard. I have kids. I've graduated school. I've got a job. I've experienced everything that a normal teenager would. Not even just a teenager. I had a Year 6 formal. You know, I got a first boyfriend. I had a first kiss. I had, you know, all of the things that a normal child should be able to experience, and that got taken from her. He had no right to take that from her, and that's something that she won't get to experience. So it's unfair. It is. But I'm grateful for the life that I've lived. It's just a shame that she didn't get that opportunity.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the street. If you see a shark, don't forget to scream. Yeah. Always love Uncle.